Hey guys, welcome back. So tonight I'm getting ready to make some resin parts out of this big mold. And whenever I'm pouring resin pieces, I like to have a bunch of small molds around so that I can pour any excess resin into these little molds and just make a bunch of greeblies or whatever. I've got like bins full of greeblies that I just cast anytime I'm making parts. But one of the things I've gotten requests for recently, I've got two people that want to buy sets of C3PO hand pistons, like these little guys here that go on the back of the hands. And I am out of them, so I need to make some more. And when I do these, it requires some prep work. I have to make these little armatures here, which go inside of the actual hand piston and make it strong. So if you've seen my 3D printed parts, they look correct and they're really nice, but they are little thin pieces of plastic. They're very thin here, and they're not very sturdy. But these, as you can see, they don't bend or break, or you don't have to worry about them snapping off. These are the resin ones. They are made off of my 3D printed parts, but they have a little armature inside, which keeps them sturdy. So I'm pre-making armatures, and I was thinking about this, and I was like, you know what? This mold that I used to make these hand pistons, which look really nice, come out really good. This is one of the cheapest, easiest ways to make a mold ever, and it works better than the original version of the molds that I had for the hand pistons, which I did like this, which I carefully clayed up all these hand pistons and set them up really nice and did 2 different pours of silicone and has keys, and this mold sucks. And the main reason it sucks, this is the lesson learned from this, is I did these really long keys. And what happens is when you put the mold together, and even if you brace it with boards or something, when you put the mold together, if it twists just the slightest little bit like this, at all, the 2 halves of the parts will be offset slightly. And you'll have a weird seam, and then they look crazy. And it happened more often than not, so that's why I remade the mold. So this mold, it took me a long time to make, and lots of fiddly with the little tools to get the clay in all the little crevices perfectly. Works way crappier than this mold that was super easy to make, where I basically just took one of the hand pistons and mounted it on a board, or all 3 of the hand pistons. Basically, this is enough for one hand. All 3 of them, mounted them on a board, alternating like sardines. And just poured silicone right over them, and then I cut the silicone out. So you can see the cut lines here. I just did a jaggedy cut, and when you make a jagged cut, it looks bad, but it actually closes up very, very nicely, and those little jaggedy marks key together really well, so you get almost no seam at all. And another plus to this is that the part that's facing down in the mold is the top of the hand piston, so there's no seams visible at all. So the whole top and sides, there are no seams, and the only place there's a seam line is on the bottom, and it's almost invisible. You can't even see it. And this mold was so easy to make. So there are times when the easy way might be the better way. So this is a good example. But that being said, this crappy mold, instead of throwing it out or cutting it up and using it for something else, it works great for a jig to make my hand pistons. So I can take my little wires and lay them in, once they're cut to size, of course. I will lay them in the mold like this, and make sure they're all lined up the way I want. And then I use my little staples. This is what I use for my connectors. I've tried a bunch of different pieces. Actually, like this one has wire inside, and this one's really long. It's just an experiment. But the ones that I sell, I always do with 1 or 2 types of staples. These ones are have like a flat surface, but the last few batches I did had rounded staples. I don't know where I got them from, but I can't find them again. They were like, I don't know if you can see the inside of these, but they work great. And you can take the staple and put them through the hand and then bend them over to hold them in place, which works really, really well. Or you can trim these down and glue them to the hand. So once you pop them in the top of the hand, you can just add a dot of glue on the inside. And I've never had one come off that's been glued together like that. They've all worked fine. So anyway, so here's what I do. I get the piece all lined up. I'm not sure if you guys can see this. I don't know if I can bring my camera any closer. Maybe. I don't know. So anyway, I have all the pieces set up here. I use some Zap-A-Gap, which is basically glorified super glue. And I put just a dot on each one. If this will come out, I probably need to clean this thing out here. See if that works. See if it'll pour now. There we go. I put just a little drop on each one of these. And this is just going to hold it in place temporarily. Make sure they're nice and straight the way I want them to be. They look good, nothing's out of place. And then I hit them with a little bit of zip kicker. And this kicks off that glue really fast. And now I should be able to pick this up. And there we go. We've got a little piece here ready to be wrapped. And so once these are done, here's something I did earlier. I take the part like this. I put another little dot of glue. Let me get this ready though. Actually, I'm going to get some thread ready here. This is plenty. And I put a little dot of glue right around where the nail connects. I grab my thread and I wrap it around the connection on the staple, because even though they're glued, they can come unattached, detached. They can become detached relatively easily, but once you wrap them with the thread and they have a good coat of glue, they will not go anywhere. So we have that. Now typically I trim these with something, but I'm not sure if I have anything here. Put a little bit more glue on there just to solidify it. Give it a little kicker. Of course, I put this top back on. There we go. Kick it a little bit, and we'll trim it. Now, again, I don't know where my scissors are at, so I'm going to use these clippers here. Unsuccessfully, but then there it is. It's a little wrapped part inside, nice and sturdy and strong. And so basically, I'm going to set up probably 2 or 3 dozen of these. I'm just going to go through a whole bunch and get them made tonight so they're ready to go. So whenever I start casting parts, I can make a ton of these little hand pistons and be set. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful. Probably in the next video, I'm going to do some weird test molds with this silicone that was given to me. This is meant to be sprayed through a sprayer of some sort. My friend had a bunch of these and he said, oh, you can have one. And this was 2 years ago, right before I moved to California. He gave this to me. So this silicone's probably pretty old. I don't know if it's low viscosity or if it's high viscosity. I really don't know. But one of the things I want to mold are these GoPro thumb screws. I never have these around when I need them, so I just want to have these made. I'm going to buy a bunch of the actual bolts from the hardware store, and then I'm going to have a mold and I can pour up these little pieces and just have a bunch of them on hand. So I've got 7 of them here to be molded in one shot. 7 of those guys. Some little clay thing that I made. This is actually used on an Iron Maiden Eddie headpiece. I don't know where that ended up, but made it for Tom Spina. Sent him the original mold, but I figured I should make one for myself. I may make another mold of these knee pistons. And if I make another mold of those knee pistons, I'm going to do it the way I did this very simple version here. My most viewed video on YouTube right now is me making the old knee piston mold. Now, I've made dozens and dozens of castings out of this mold, and it's held up awesome, and it makes really good castings. So I'm happy with this. However, if I had to make another mold of that part, I would do it the same method I did these, because of the reasons I mentioned before. There will be no seam lines on the outside of the part. So whatever part anybody would see will have no seams at all to deal with, and that'll be nice. Whereas this mold, it leaves a little tiny seam. I always clean it up before I send them out to anybody. It's basically vanishes. I don't know if you can see, of course, on my leg lamp up here. Right there is one of those knee pistons. It's like totally smooth, looks great, no seams, but it takes a tiny bit of cleanup. If I do it the other way, it won't require any cleanup. Oh, and one other awesome thing that I want to mold is, a few days ago, I was getting ready to ship something, and I was like, oh, I think I have some bubble wrap. And I pulled out this bag. This is when I got my Robot Chicken character. And I almost threw away this wrapping because I didn't think there was anything else in there. And it turned out they sent me little resin castings of my own head. So I got 2 of these little guys, and they are amazing. So I think I am going to make a little, make a set of molds for my own head, which is going to be kind of neat. So I'm not sure how to set these up. I got to look and see how these molds are done, but 2 extra Gordon heads. So yeah, so I'll get those done, and then I will add myself to the queue of castable items in an interesting way. I'm very excited about that. Yeah, very, very cool. Extra heads. So that way I can do fun stuff, put my head on various toys and whatnot. That'll be pretty cool. So I'll put these back. And anything else? What was I feel like I was gonna mold something else too. Probably. I'll remember later when the camera stopped. Anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling now and get to work on this stuff. So much to do. See you guys soon.